Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever felt like people treat your kindness like a free service? Like you're some kind of emotional vending machine? They push a few buttons and out comes your time, your energy, your patience, your peace. They don't say thank you, they don't refill what they take, they just come back the next time they need something and expect you to be there. If that feels familiar, you're not alone. And you're definitely not crazy. See, many of us were raised to believe that being good means being endlessly available. We're taught to give people the benefit of the doubt, to keep peace in the family, to be the bigger person. But there's a hidden cost no one tells you about: emotional exhaustion, and that kind of fatigue doesn't happen overnight. It's what builds up when we tolerate behavior that chips away at our spirit, again and again. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named June. Sweet soul, always smiling. The kind of person who'd drop everything to help her family, even when she was struggling herself. Birthdays, bills, breakdowns, June was always there. But after years of pouring herself out, she started to feel hollow. She noticed something. The love she gave was never returned. Her time was expected, not appreciated. Her kindness wasn't honored, it was used. And one day, after skipping yet another important appointment just to help her sister again, something in her broke. June didn't explode. She didn't scream. She simply woke up. She realized this wasn't love. This was exploitation disguised as loyalty. Now, here's the truth. June isn't some rare story. She's all of us at some point. Because the hardest part isn't the exhaustion, it's the realization that some of the people closest to us are the ones draining us the most. This brings us to the heart of today's message. There are 5 specific behaviors you should never tolerate. Not from your partner, not from your boss, and not even from your own family. I know that's a bold statement, but sometimes the most dangerous thing is not what people do to us. It's what we allow again and again in the name of peace. And as the Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, what you tolerate, you encourage. Think about that. Every time we stay silent when someone disrespects our time, we train them to keep doing it. Every time we dismiss that gut feeling when someone crosses a boundary, we're teaching them that our limits aren't real. And over time, we begin to betray ourselves quietly, consistently, painfully. But here's the good news: recognizing what not to tolerate isn't selfish. It's the first step toward self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of every healthy relationship you will ever have. So if you've ever wondered why you feel drained after talking to a certain friend, if you've ever questioned whether you're too sensitive for noticing the little digs your partner makes, if you've ever felt guilty for pulling back from a family member who constantly demands but never gives, then this video is for you. Because what we're about to unpack could very well be the turning point. The moment when you finally stop giving your power away and start reclaiming your peace. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through 5 toxic behaviors that people often normalize but that you should never tolerate. You'll learn not just what they look like, but how to spot the patterns, protect your boundaries, and walk forward with clarity, strength, and calm. Not through revenge, not through anger, but through wisdom, the kind of inner strength the Stoics believed in. So, take a breath, center yourself, and get ready, because the path to emotional freedom starts the moment you decide to stop being a vending machine and start being a human being with limits, values, and unshakable self-respect. Let's begin. Part 1. The criticism that destroys you. Let's talk about something subtle, but deeply destructive. Constant criticism. Now, I'm not talking about helpful feedback, the kind that comes from someone who genuinely wants to see you grow. I'm talking about that relentless, under-the-skin kind of criticism that chips away at your spirit little by little. The kind that hides behind phrases like, "I'm just being honest. It's for your own good. You're too sensitive." Sound familiar? This isn't love. This isn't guidance. This is emotional erosion. And here's the tricky part. Most of us don't even recognize it right away, especially when it comes from the people closest to us. Maybe it's a partner who constantly finds flaws in how you talk, how you dress, how you spend your time. Maybe it's a parent who masks their hurtful words as tough love, always pointing out what you could have done better, never what you've done right. Or a boss who can't go a day without reminding you how replaceable you are, no matter how much you give. At first you tell yourself, maybe they're right. Then you start walking on eggshells. You shrink a little, you smile less. And slowly, you begin to doubt your worth. This is where the real damage begins. Not in the words spoken to you, but in the beliefs you start to build about yourself. So, let me ask you, when did we start believing that being emotionally wounded was just the price we had to pay to be accepted? When did we start tolerating voices that only seek to reduce us? Now, here's something powerful from the Stoics, something that changed the way I see this behavior entirely. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." If all you ever hear is that you're not good enough, your soul, your self-image starts to wear that color. But Stoicism teaches us that our dignity is not something others define. It's something we protect, and protecting it means drawing a line. Not with hate, not with anger, but with virtue, because to say I will no longer accept this treatment is not weakness, it's wisdom, it's strength, it's self-respect in action. Let me share a true story. There was a man named Daniel, quiet, kind-hearted, hard-working. For years his older brother belittled him, mocked his career choices, dismissed his achievements, laughed at his dreams. Every family dinner felt like an interrogation, and every time Daniel smiled, said nothing, swallowed the pain. Because that's just how my brother is, he told himself. But inside something was breaking. It wasn't until Daniel became a father himself that something clicked. One evening, after a long day at work, he overheard his 6-year-old daughter repeating something his brother had said to him. "Dad, why do you always let Uncle talk to you like that?" And right then, he realized. Silence wasn't maturity. It was surrender. He wasn't teaching his daughter strength. He was showing her how to accept disrespect. That night, Daniel made a decision. He didn't yell. He didn't fight. He simply told his brother, calmly but firmly, "I love you, but if you continue speaking to me like this, I'm done coming around." And for the first time, he meant it. That's Stoicism, not the cold, emotionless version people often misunderstand, but the real kind. Steady, clear, principled. A calm commitment to honoring your own humanity. You see, the Stoics didn't believe in being doormats. They believed in integrity, in boundaries, in truth without cruelty and firmness without rage. Because there is a difference between enduring life and enabling abuse. So if someone in your life thinks they have the right to constantly tear you down, you do not owe them your silence. You do not have to stay in the name of keeping the peace. Peace that comes at the cost of your self-worth isn't peace at all. It's quiet suffering. Let me leave you with this. If someone handed you a cup of poison every day and called it love, how long would you keep drinking it? Criticism that crushes isn't tough love, it's slow destruction. And love, real love, builds. It doesn't break, it encourages, it doesn't erode. So starting today, remember this. You are not here to please everyone. You are not here to be someone else's emotional punching bag. You are here to live with dignity, with courage, and with boundaries that protect your soul. That is not selfish. That is stoic. And it's the beginning of reclaiming your strength. Part 2. When they cross the line. Let's talk about boundaries. Not the kind we casually mention in conversations. I mean real boundaries. The kind that say, this is where I end and where you don't get to trespass. Because the truth is, many people don't respect boundaries. Not because they don't understand them, but because they don't think the rules apply to them. Let me give you an example. There's an elderly woman named Margaret. kind, quiet, lives alone since her husband passed away. Her son, let's call him Brian, has a spare key to her home, which she gave him years ago in case of emergencies. But lately, emergencies seem to happen a lot. Brian lets himself in without calling first. He shows up unannounced. Sometimes he rearranges things. Sometimes he walks in while she's sleeping. And when Margaret finally worked up the courage to say, "Please, can you call before coming over?" he laughed and said, "Mom, it's just me, don't be dramatic." But it's not just him, and she's not being dramatic. What Brian did wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a violation. He crossed a line that was meant to protect her peace, her privacy, and her independence. And he did it with the casual entitlement of someone who believed her discomfort didn't matter. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever set a boundary only to watch someone step right over it as if it were optional? Maybe it was a friend who kept prying into your personal life even after you asked for space. A colleague who dumped tasks on your plate after hours, even when you said you were overwhelmed. A family member who used guilt to manipulate your time, your choices, your freedom, and each time you felt smaller. Not because you were weak, but because you were hoping they'd care enough to listen. But Stoicism teaches us something essential here. Boundaries are not requests. They are standards. And if there are no consequences for violating them, they aren't really boundaries at all. They're just hopes. The Stoic philosopher Seneca once wrote, "You must live for yourself. If you let others steer your life, they will drive you into their chaos." That's not coldness, that's clarity. See, boundaries are not about building walls. They're about drawing lines with purpose. They say, "This is how I want to be treated. And if you cross this line, there will be distance, not debate." And here's the truth no one tells you. When people repeatedly cross your boundaries, they're not confused. They're testing you. They're watching to see if you'll flinch, if you'll fold, if you'll stay quiet one more time to keep the peace, even as you lose your own. But silence is not peace. It's often the quiet agreement to be mistreated. Let me share something from my own life. Years ago, I had a friend who constantly called me at midnight. Not once or twice. Constantly. Always about drama. Always in crisis mode. And every time I picked up, I was exhausted the next day, drained emotionally, mentally fried. I finally said, "Hey, I care about you, but I can't keep doing this at night. Let's talk during the day." You know what happened? She stopped talking to me. Not because I was rude, but because my boundary inconvenienced her access. And that's when I realized, sometimes setting boundaries doesn't push the wrong people away. It reveals who they always were. We fear that drawing a line will make people angry, but the Stoics would say, let them be. You're not responsible for other people's comfort with your limits. You are responsible for protecting your time, your energy, your mental clarity. And boundaries are not meant to make others feel good. They're meant to keep you whole. So if someone rolls their eyes when you say no, if they keep violating your space after you've spoken up, if they treat your boundaries like speed bumps rather than stop signs, that is not a relationship built on love. That is a relationship built on control. And you deserve better. You deserve people who respect your voice the first time. People who don't need a reminder that your autonomy isn't up for negotiation. Because the longer you let people cross the line, the harder it becomes to remember where the line even was. You begin to question your own needs. You begin to second-guess your instincts. And eventually, you stop drawing lines at all. But today I want to invite you to draw the line again. Clearly, kindly, firmly. To say, this is what I accept, and this is what I will walk away from. And if someone doesn't like it, that's their journey, not your burden. Because as the Stoics taught, a virtuous life is not one of endless compromise. It is a life lived with purpose, principles, and peace. Part 3. The quiet destruction of gaslighting. There's a kind of harm that doesn't leave bruises, no shouting, no visible damage. Just a quiet unraveling of who you are. It's called gaslighting. and it's one of the most dangerous forms of emotional manipulation out there. You've probably heard the word before, but unless you've lived through it, it's hard to explain just how deep it cuts. Because gaslighting doesn't just make you question someone else, it makes you question yourself. Let me paint a picture. Imagine this. You bring up something that bothered you, maybe a comment someone made that felt dismissive or cruel. You're not yelling, you're not attacking, you're just opening up. And they respond with, "You're too sensitive. You always overreact. That never happened. You're remembering it wrong." At first you feel confused. Maybe they're right. Maybe you did misremember. But then it happens again, and again, and again. And over time you stop trusting your own emotions. You second-guess your memory. You walk into every conversation wondering, am I the problem? That is gaslighting. And it's not a misunderstanding. It's not a communication issue. It is a strategy of control. Now here's the heartbreaking truth. Many people don't even realize it's happening until they've already lost their sense of self. You see, manipulation isn't always loud. It can sound sweet. It can wear the mask of concern. It can come from a partner, a parent, even a boss. People who claim to care but slowly chip away at your clarity until you start living inside their version of reality. But the Stoics warned us about this kind of distortion. Epictetus said, if someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation. In other words, we must be guardians of our own perception, not to blame ourselves, but to protect our inner clarity from being hijacked. When someone gaslights you, they're not just challenging your memory, they're trying to rewire your truth. And if they can control your truth, they can control you. So how do we fight back? Not with rage, not with drama, with truth. Truth is the Stoic weapon of choice. Not loud, not emotional, but precise, anchored. And when it comes to gaslighting, that means a few important things. Document what's real. When something feels off, write it down. The date, the words, the tone. Keep a journal, even if it's private, because memory can get blurry when someone's trying to rewrite it. But documentation brings you back to center. Talk to someone outside the fog. Gaslighting isolates you. That's the point. So step outside of it. Talk to a trusted friend, therapist, or mentor. Someone who can remind you of who you are, without distortion. Because sometimes we just need one clear mirror to see ourselves again. Don't fight the manipulator. Withdraw from the game. Here's what many don't realize. Gaslighters feed off your reaction. They want you to get defensive, to lose your balance, to spiral. So instead of arguing, get quiet. Step back. Detach. Stoicism teaches us not to waste energy where truth won't be heard. Instead, we conserve our power. We move with clarity. And we leave when we must. Let me share a story. A woman named Olivia spent years in a relationship where everything was her fault. If he forgot something, it was because she distracted him. If he raised his voice, it was because she made him angry. If she cried, he'd say she was crazy or manipulative, and the worst part, she believed it. Until one day she told a friend what had been happening, word for word. Her friend paused, looked her in the eye, and said, "That's not love. That's psychological warfare." That moment was her awakening. She started writing things down. She spoke to a therapist, she created distance, and slowly she reclaimed her mind. Not through confrontation, but through clarity. And now? Olivia says the most powerful thing she ever did wasn't walking away. It was finally believing her own truth again. That's the core of this message. Because gaslighting doesn't just steal your peace, it steals your perception. And once your perception is gone, everything else falls with it. But here's what the Stoics knew. Your mind is sacred ground. It's the final place no one can touch, unless you hand them the key. So keep your truth close, write it, speak it, guard it, And if someone insists on bending your reality to fit their comfort, you owe them nothing. Not your explanation, not your silence, not your permission, because truth doesn't shout. It stands, firm, unmoved, unbent, and so should you. Part 4. The slow poison of chronic dishonesty. Let's talk about something most people underestimate: lies. Not the big, scandalous kind that show up in headlines. I'm talking about the small ones, the white lies, the half-truths, the carefully edited stories, the things people leave out, not because they forgot, but because it benefits them if you never find out. At first it doesn't seem like a big deal. Maybe they said they were somewhere and weren't. Maybe they promised they'd change, but never really did. Maybe they forgot to mention that conversation, that bill, that decision, and you tell yourself, everyone slips sometimes. But over time, something deeper happens. You stop trusting your memory. You start questioning your instincts. You wonder if you're being paranoid, or if something really is off. And that's the thing about chronic dishonesty. It doesn't explode your world in one moment. It erodes it slowly, quietly, from the inside out. Now I want to be clear. This isn't about one mistake, one bad choice. We've all made them. But chronic dishonesty? That's different. It's a pattern, a repeated refusal to live in truth. And over time, it creates emotional instability so deep, you begin to feel like reality itself can't be trusted. Let me give you an example. Sarah was in a relationship with someone who lied constantly, but never about big things. He'd lie about small purchases, who he texted, what time he got home. If she confronted him, he'd laugh it off. You're overreacting. I didn't think it was important. I just didn't want to upset you. And that last one, I didn't want to upset you. That's the most manipulative of all, because it dresses itself up as kindness, when really it's emotional control. After years of this, Sarah didn't even know what was real anymore. She second-guessed every emotion, every thought. And the worst part? She blamed herself for feeling confused. But that's what dishonesty does when it becomes a pattern. It disconnects you from your intuition. It rewrites the rules of trust. And it makes you believe that love means tolerating instability. But the Stoics would tell us something very different. Marcus Aurelius said, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Why? Because honesty isn't just about virtue. It's about emotional discipline. It's about showing up to life without disguises. See, the Stoics believed that living in alignment with truth was the only way to live in peace. Because when you lie, even a little, you disturb your inner clarity. You split your reality, and the people around you feel that fracture even if they can't name it. So what do you do when someone in your life keeps lying? Not just once, but consistently. You pay attention to the pattern, not the apology. You watch how often their stories shift. You listen to the feeling in your gut, the one that tightens when something just doesn't add up. And then you make a decision, not to punish, not to shame, but to protect your peace. Because here's the hard truth. You cannot build anything real on a foundation of lies, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, or a working relationship. If there's no honesty, there's no safety. And without safety, there can be no trust. Without trust, there is no relationship, only performance. And you deserve more than a performance. Now let me give you a different example. Someone who broke the cycle. A man named Jason had a best friend since college. They'd been through everything together. But over the years, that friend started lying, not just to others, but to Jason. He'd lie about money, lie about promises, always with a smile, always with charm. And for years, Jason let it slide, because that's just how he is. But one day, Jason realized he was constantly anxious before they met, constantly double-checking things, constantly feeling like he was covering for someone else's chaos. And that's when it hit him. The relationship had become dishonest, not just because of the lies told, but because of the truths he kept burying. So Jason sat down and said, "I care about you, but I can't stay close to someone I can't trust." It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't emotional, it was clear, and that's the Stoic way. You don't scream, you don't beg, you simply align your life with truth, because anything less is suffering in slow motion. So if you've been wondering whether it's too much to expect honesty, it's not. You are allowed to expect people to mean what they say. You are allowed to ask for clarity. You are allowed to step back from anyone who chooses illusion over integrity. Because real connection, it only exists in truth. And if someone repeatedly chooses lies, you are not obligated to choose them. Part 5. When jokes are just disrespect in disguise. Let's talk about something that's been brushed off for far too long. The kind of disrespect that hides behind a smile. You know what I mean. The jokes, the playful comments, the sarcasm, the teasing that sounds like humor, but hits like humiliation. It's when someone says something hurtful and then quickly follows it with, "I'm just kidding." Don't take it so seriously. Lighten up, you're too sensitive. And just like that, the responsibility shifts to you. Suddenly you're the one who can't take a joke, not them, the one who crossed a line. Let me be very clear. If the joke leaves you feeling small, mocked, or exposed, it's not a joke. It's a mask for cruelty, a mask for control, a mask for disrespect. Because here's the truth. Not all insults come with a raised voice. Some come wrapped in laughter. Take the story of a woman named Laura. For decades, her older brother would make jokes about her weight, her divorce, even her therapy sessions. He'd bring it up at family dinners, in front of friends, always with a laugh, always with the excuse of being honest. "Hey, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Come on, it's funny." But Laura didn't laugh. She smiled to keep the peace. She stayed quiet to avoid making it awkward. But every joke was a little cut to the soul, and year after year those cuts added up, until one day she couldn't do it anymore. She stood up from the table and said calmly, "You've been mocking me for 20 years, and I'm done pretending it's funny." Silence, and for the first time, her brother had nothing to say, because deep down he knew it was never about humor. It was always about power. Now let me ask you, have you ever been the punchline in someone else's comedy routine? Have you ever felt the sting of a comment that was just teasing, but lingered long after the laugh? If so, you're not alone. And you're not wrong for feeling hurt, because as the Stoics taught, words are powerful. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And part of that mastery means being intentional with our speech, not using it to wound, but to uplift. The Stoics believed words should be like medicine, sometimes strong, yes, but never used recklessly. Always to heal, never to harm. So when someone uses honesty or humor as a license to say whatever they want, without caring how it lands, they are not being brave, they're being careless. And carelessness with someone else's dignity is not a joke, it's emotional laziness. But here's what often stops us from speaking up. We don't want to be that person, the one who can't take a joke, the one who makes things awkward. But let me flip the question. Why is it your job to absorb disrespect just to keep someone else comfortable? The truth is, staying silent doesn't keep the peace. It just delays the explosion. Because resentment builds. And the longer you tolerate jokes that cut, the more they become normal, expected, routine. Until one day, you don't even realize how much of your self-worth has been chipped away, one comment at a time. But you can change that. And you don't need to fight, or yell, or match disrespect with disrespect. All you need is clarity. You can simply say, "I don't find that funny. That crossed a line for me." If that's a joke, it didn't land well. Not as a confrontation, but as a boundary. And if the other person truly values you, they'll listen. If they don't, That tells you everything you need to know, because real honesty, it's not brutal, it's compassionate. It doesn't use truth as a weapon, it uses it as a mirror. And real humor? It lifts people up. It never targets someone's trauma, insecurities, or history for entertainment. So if someone repeatedly laughs at your expense, that's not lighthearted fun. That's disrespect dressed in comedy, and you have every right to walk away from it. Remember, you're not being too sensitive for standing up for yourself. You're being self-respecting. You're not weak for calling out harm. You're strong for refusing to accept it, even when it wears a smile. Because as the Stoics remind us, peace of mind isn't found in avoiding discomfort. It's found in living with integrity. And integrity means knowing what's not okay, even when everyone else is laughing. Let's take a moment to breathe, because what we've just walked through together, the constant criticism, the broken boundaries, the manipulation and gaslighting, the dishonest patterns, and the jokes that cut deeper than anyone admits. These aren't just annoying habits, they aren't quirks or just how someone is. They are warning signs, signals that something in the relationship is out of alignment with your peace, your dignity, and your core values. And here's the truth, maybe the hardest truth of all. Tolerating these behaviors doesn't make you stronger. It makes you quieter. It makes you smaller. It makes you exhausted. Because when you carry the weight of other people's disrespect long enough, it starts to feel normal. It wears you down slowly, until your own boundaries become blurry, your energy runs dry, and you forget that life was never meant to feel like this. But the good news? You don't have to burn every bridge or start swinging swords to reclaim your power. Start small. Start steady. Start stoic. Say no one time, and don't apologize for it. Tell someone, that joke wasn't okay, and let the silence be your strength. Take back your space, your time, your truth, inch by inch. Because self-respect doesn't begin with confrontation. It begins with clarity. And that's what Stoic wisdom gives us. Not cold detachment, but centered presence. A way to live that honors your inner calm. Not through control or revenge, but through restraint, boundaries, and truth. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. What he's saying is powerful. You don't control others, but you control your response, and that response can either feed the cycle or end it. So if someone constantly criticizes you, you don't have to absorb it. If someone pushes past your boundaries, you can rebuild the wall brick by brick. If someone manipulates or gaslights you, you can step back and anchor yourself in your truth. If someone lies again and again, you can stop accepting words that don't match actions. And if someone hides cruelty behind laughter, you can call it what it is, disrespect, not humor. This is not about becoming hard. It's about becoming whole. Let me ask you, what would your life feel like if you stopped shrinking to fit someone else's comfort? What would change if you gave yourself permission to walk away from what drains you? Not with bitterness, but with peace. Because that's the standard now. Peace is no longer a luxury. Peace is your minimum requirement. It doesn't mean you'll never face conflict. It doesn't mean every relationship will be perfect. But it does mean this. You are no longer available for emotional chaos disguised as connection. And if you've been waiting for permission to set that boundary, to step back, to redefine what respect really means, here it is. From now on, you don't measure love by how much you endure. You measure it by how much mutual respect it brings. You don't measure strength by how long you stay silent. You measure it by how boldly you protect your energy, your time, and your truth. So today, take one step. You don't have to confront everyone. You don't have to explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. All you need is to begin. Begin choosing peace over pleasing, clarity over confusion, truth over tolerance. Because the moment you stop allowing disrespect, that's the moment you start respecting yourself. And that's where the healing begins. Thank you for walking this journey with me. If this message spoke to you, I invite you to share it. Someone out there needs to hear it today. And remember, your peace is not negotiable. Guard it, live it, and let it guide you forward.